And yes, a successful business trip for the Vancouver Whitecaps. Let's do the quick math. 5-0 in the first leg. They lose today. 3 goals. It doesn't matter. They're moving on. 7-3 is the final, I believe, when all is said and done. And it took Real España a while to get into the match. We're going to go through Vancouver performances. Plenty of goals in the end. There were 5 of them in leg 1. There were 5 of them in leg 2. So there's a lot of offense to discuss. And then a look ahead as well to the quarterfinal round. A little Canadian men's national team talk. Settle in is what I'm saying. I feel like a lot of you out west are just getting off work now. It's a tough start time for you. It's Gareth Wheeler, Jordan Wilson, Adam Jenkins here with you. Look, it was never going to be straightforward for España to come into this match. I think Vancouver did exactly what they wanted to do, Gareth, and they get another win on the season. That's positive. They get some new faces in. They see some good performances, some good goals, and, I mean, not a ton to complain about for Vanni Sartini.
Well, they lose the game, but it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter at all. Do you think the massive positive here? Well, they're moving on, first and foremost. 2, a lot of young players get valuable time for them. A very young midfielder with Ahmad and Berhalter and Gondo. I thought they played well in the midfield considering the inexperience. Players coming through the Whitecaps Academy. Vasco Fry gets some minutes, the first professional minutes for 18-year-old Mateo Campagna. So it's mission accomplished that way as well. Get a lot of players, getting some time on the field. And I thought the goals that they scored once again, especially Brian White, a player that they need to get going. He scores in back-to-back Concacaf Champions League games. A really nice finish by him as well. So the positives by far outweigh the negatives. Then you speak about the midfielders, Gald, Veselinovic. None of these players even made the trip. So you're able to do that, still have that eye cast on the LA Galaxy this week and still come away with a result that allows you to move on to the next round.
Yeah, I think that's what you could see today. That's the biggest positive. That guys came and they were ready to play, and they got minutes under the belt. Like a Karifa Yao, you get a game early on and you play a full 90. You can't replace that type of feeling.
Well, let's go through the goals, and as you mentioned, Gareth, some quality on both of them. Brian White would get the goal-scoring party started just after the hour mark. It ended up being in the 66th minute. Quite the finish, Jordan, on this. And look, the game needed a jolt. It was scoreless. At this point, España needs 5, and not much going on. And then a little bit of individual brilliance and honestly, a good team workup for the Caps before White puts his signature on it once again.
Look, at this point, when the ball comes to you, most people are taking a touch. He wraps his foot and curls that back post. Like, for me, this is just a strike from someone who has confidence. Someone saying, you know what, I can score, I can be a guy. I know for last season he scored 4 and he already is at 2. So, hey, the sky's the limit for him right now. He's starting really well.
Great finish. Look, it was a scrappy goal. Like, there was loss of possession about 3 times on the right-hand side. But Jermaine Brown simply wanted it more. And it's a really good cutback ball as well by the right fullback. But that's why on the balance of this game, like from a tactical perspective, I'm not sure how much is there.
Yeah.
It was more like sheer desire and a moment of absolute quality from Brian White as well. And, a player that scored now, once every 3 games he's played for the Whitecaps. I think that number needs to tick up a little bit more. As Cordova did okay again today, maybe wasted a chance, but I think there's a real true question mark. Who's going to be the best player to lead that line for the Whitecaps?
Well, there would be some offense from the Hondurans, but before we move on to their goals, let's take a look at Simon Becher's effort. And it was, I mean, you want to talk about a player who's laying it all out there, and Sebastian Berhalter just fires a dart towards the flag, but there is still a lot to do for Becher here, Gareth.
Look at this, a little stop. And go. See you later. The goalkeeper, Lopez. Oh, yeah, have fun against Alphonso Davies when you see him later on this month, by the way. But Becher, I mean, he scored a goal in his only MLS appearance, a match winner against Houston Dynamo last year. The 23-year-old has a little bit of quality. That's a really good effort to go short post, but completely laid waste to the defender there. Good little goal by Becher. And I thought Berhalter over the game was one of the better players on the field.
I think so, too. But that extra touch that Becher takes as well, just to give him a little bit of an angle and then sneak it in near post. I'm like, very sneaky of him. Very classy, though. Great finish.
Listen, I think Gareth and I can both agree on that. You don't believe in the announcers, Jinx, do you?
Me?
Yeah.
No.
Okay, see, we don't wield
have that
much
kind of power.
But when we're not wearing the headset, it is kind of funny when it happens immediately after the announcer utters the word clean sheet, because that is what happened to Thomas Saul. Josh mentions, yeah, they just need to hang on and not concede 7 goals and try and get that clean sheet. Well, Real España got the goal-scoring party started about 15 seconds after that. It was a bit of a spill out of the hands of the Saskatoon native, but maybe a bigger theme here, Gareth, with some set pieces early in the season for the Caps.
Set pieces and defending crosses. It's like the Whitecaps' kryptonite right now. One of 2 things Saul has to do. He either needs to catch the ball or he needs to punch that clear. That option 3 here was a disaster. I mean, Yao didn't even know it was coming. Look, another goal. Set piece. Again, really good finish at the far post, but conceding from there needs to be pressure on the ball at that time. And the third goal is going to come from another set piece as well, where simply put, Real España just were more hungry to get to that ball inside the area before the Vancouver Whitecaps. So 3 goals scored that way. That's going to be frustrating for the Whitecaps because even with the first team regular players, they're conceding this way in the regular season as well.
Vanni Sartini spoke to us last week about them being a zonal team. Every time I look at them defending these crosses, defending corners, even on the weekend with Dallas, they're just whipping in crosses saying, hey, this is where we're going to score. Someone needs to take accountability back there. If I'm a player for Vancouver Whitecaps and week in and week out we're letting in and leaking in goals just from crosses, I'm not saying that we need to change formations or we need to move out of zone, but someone needs to take accountability, whether that's Blackman, whoever it might be. If you're a center back or if you're the guy leading guys on, you got to take accountability and make sure you clear
That's why I prefer man-to-man. I don't know about you, the way that you prefer defending, because you know what your responsibility is. This is your man, and you need to beat that player to the ball. So I know they've changed the formation, they've changed some things, but that's something I think can become a lot more clear when you're asking your defenders just to win that one-on-one battle.
Very true, Wheels.
Yeah, too little too late for Real España. Vancouver, it makes the 6-hour charter flight down south. They've done the job at that point, but 3 goals in a row, you're not going to love that if you're Vanni Sartini, especially when you know the step up that is coming. LA Galaxy next, and then perhaps LAFC in the next round of the Concacaf Champions League. Let's talk about Karifa Yao. We highlighted the young man in the pregame show. In the end, he goes the full 90, makes 21 correct passes, only 5 missed opportunities, and a steal on him for the night as well. Not his most comfortable, but for the start, all in, not a bad performance.
Not a bad one, but it's just a match under his legs, right? Like now he has it. He's won the jerseys. He has the minutes.
This was one moment he could have done better in the game.
100%.
Just need to make a decision there.
Kind of fell asleep, and at this level, you can't do that. Teams will punish you, strikers will punish you. But I think for him, his positioning was overall pretty good, and I think he's a guy that likes to be on the front foot. So I think his positioning in terms of, you see here, like he was very even with his feet. Wasn't moving too far in one direction. So I think it's a good first game for him.
And again, you'll see a better version of Yao with the first team regular players in front of him as well. And this was a game they probably fell a lot deeper than they naturally would. So there's still going to be a little bit of a transition, but you're right, 90 positive minutes. Hopefully he can start to gain the trust of the coaching staff, gets to see a little bit more. Injuries are going to happen over the season, play a lot of competitions. This one, they're still alive. Canadian Championship, Leagues Cup, and the MLS Cup regular season. Vancouver, relatively thin at center back. He's going to get his chances.
But I want to see more from him in terms of, in this area, just being a leader. I think that's something that is almost, it doesn't get talked about enough. It's like, yeah, you're playing center back, but that role specifically is about controlling what's around you. Sometimes it's not about having a great performance. It's making sure your left back is doing well, your 6 is doing well, and the person and partner you're playing with. It's him being more vocal. I know it's a new role or a new team that you're at, but it's really taking care of those moments and those pieces around.
But that takes time going from the Canadian Premier League to MLS to develop into that role. It's not just going to be handed to him. So baby steps, though.
Yeah.
A night like this, solid enough. It's something to build off of.
Sure. Something to build off of, and you need to put in these performances, right, to build that confidence with Vanni Sartini. Say you're ready to go into those matches, and that's where the ability to puff out your chest a little bit when you have those minutes underneath you, when you're not starting, waiting 6 or 7 matches, getting a bit of time here or there. You need those reps, and small sample size with the Whitecaps. The first start for Yao looks good. And hey, we're talking about center back depth with the Canadian men's national team. I don't think Yao is quite there on the pecking chart yet, but he's getting those minutes in MLS. Those are all positive signs for the young man. On that national team, that is where we will turn our spotlight to next, with Nations League just around the corner on OneSoccer. Well, the return of the men's national team to OneSoccer is just around the corner. Curacao will be first, a 6 p.m. Pacific time start in that match from Willemstad, Curacao. And then just a few days later, back to Toronto, they fly to host Honduras. An 8 p.m. Eastern time start for that match as Canada looks to pick up 4 crucial points from those 2 matches to try and book their spot in the Concacaf Nations League semifinals and hopefully a ticket to the final from there. Adam Jenkins, Gareth Wheeler, and Jordan Wilson with you on Matchday Live, our post-game show. We're going to move this conversation a little bit to the men's national team, dive into it a bit more. Gareth, I asked you before the show started about John Herdman and this being the first time we will see the national team since the World Cup. It's also the first time we're going to see and have John Herdman in front of microphones since the rumors to New Zealand were leaked. He reaffirmed his commitment in a written statement, but you know he's going to be asked about it plentiful, and rightfully so. It was a pretty big story. What do you make of what we might hear from the gaffer?
I think there's going to be a lot of questions directed at both Herdman and the players that are going to have absolutely nothing to do what's going on on the field of play. I mean, this was something that will be brought up. Do I think that John Herdman's still committed to the Canadian men's national team? Absolutely. Like, there's a bond with these players. I think they're all in it together as one. So I don't think he's wavering that way. For an example of how he still is showing that he's committed, he just returned from a stint where he got to spend time with Bayern Munich. And the purpose of the visit and spending time with Bayern Munich was twofold. One was to see how Alphonso Davies works within the professional team setup, how it compared to the national team, and to go more on one and have the time to do that with Alphonso outside of a Canadian men's national team camp. He's not doing that if he's not committed. Also being able to spend time with Nagelsmann, the Bayern Munich manager, seeing how they deal with windows where they have 2 games in a week, and see how that differentiates from what they do at the national team level as well. John's doing this on his own dime. He's spending his own time outside of other preparations to go out and do this. He's absolutely committed to this team. I will say, though, with everything that's come out as of late, potential budget cuts, staffing issues, I don't care who you are in terms of being a manager in this game. If you don't feel like the conditions are being set to enable you to achieve, then coaches are going to look in different directions. I think that is natural in this industry. And I think that some legitimate questions have been asked moving forward. Now, the fact that he didn't act, and he said this in his statement, that there are, potential parties that may be interested in services. That's going to happen when you're in the spotlight. But he's committed to Canada. He hasn't moved on. He's working behind the scenes doing one-on-ones with the players and having experiences like this at Bayern Munich. So I think for now, in a big year for the Canadian men's national team, I personally do not think he's going anywhere. I think he's committed to the program. But everything outside of the field of play, that needs to settle down, and he needs to understand what he has in terms of resources and what he may have to make up for.
And that's the nature of the business, Wheels. As a footballer and as a manager, you don't have forever to do those things, right? You have maybe a 10, 15-year window where you got to just cram in all the things that you want to do. But for me, I feel like you can't fake certain things, vibes, energies. When I see him, or when I saw him with the boys in Qatar, and just how they left the pitch, and how he's hugging them and holding them, and just the environment that he's created, I know that he's committed. I know that he wants to see it through. And we talked about on OneSoccer today, just like he's done the dirty work, and this next 3.5 years is really that time to really sow into the group and get some of the reward and get some of that joy that rightfully he deserves as a manager. I think he's committed to the group, but more importantly, I think he's committed to winning. I think in the way that he moves and the way that he has orchestrated this group, and pushing them on, and has a brotherhood. Look, years before, this was just kind of like a vacation situation when guys were met in Canada.
Especially in Concacaf.
Rightfully so. And now you have guys saying, hey, if you're going to come in, if you're going to use your dual nationality and you're going to play for Canada, you're going to do it right. And that culture, that comes from him. So I think that commitment is apparent. I think everyone should respect it.
Well, there's big games on the horizon, okay? I think that he in this country still has something to prove in the Nations League, trying to win this tournament. And the Gold Cups this summer as well. Then beyond that, maybe then with some positive energy and attention on this program, you can get some big name friendlies. That's one thing going into the World Cup that they haven't regularly had over the last decade, is playing like these top 30 teams in the world. They need to play more teams like that on a regular basis and be a team that other countries want to play against as well. I do still think that there's area for him and his team to show even more than what they've achieved already. And beyond that, once everything settles down, there's some real growth proposition for this program. It's just about steering it in the right direction, and I do think that he's committed.
Well, and it's a fair point you raised, too, because without needing to qualify now for the World Cup, that's been confirmed, they're going to have those windows, those opportunities to play those bigger seeds. You do mention the Gold Cup, Let's remind you of some of those key dates coming up this year. Nations League, of course, those 2 matches, Curacao and Honduras, coming up at the end of the month. The potential for Nations League semifinals and finals in June, and then that overlaps with the Gold Cup, so that's where we start to see a bit of roster depth. More on that in a moment. The friendlies, if Canada remain in the top 4 of CONCACAF, you expect to see that qualification process and everything beginning for Copa America around that time as well, and then the Nations League quarterfinals as well. So look, we talk about it, and look, it's important that there's no World Cup hangover here for this men's national team, that you continue that momentum, you continue the positivity, but we're also not naive enough to think we're not going to lose some players this year, retirement, age, everything. They had that World Cup. So this is where John has the tricky balance to try and shift focus towards the future, towards these big competitions here. So when we think about the roster unveil, and we assume it will come imminently in the next 48, 72 hours, we'll get that idea. What are your expectations for this release? Maybe some new names, or maybe a bit more continuity from Qatar?
I think continuity, but I just think down the spine are areas where we kind of need to figure things out as a nation. Like for me, I've said it before, just the center back roles, like what does that look like? It's not only about having, hey, 2 or 3 center backs. Can we have 4 or 5 that can go and compete? And just how things look. And then in the center mid as well, like I know we have some gems like Stakio, Kone. I'm throwing Oso in there. I know he still has some legs and whatnot, but you can't just talk about 3 players. Like the Piets have to step up when he's fit and healthy to go, and just who's really replacing Atiba. There's just so many questions with the group, and I just think the best way to put it is iron sharpens iron. If you have 25 guys where you can interchange, and you're looking at a Canadian squad like, hey, this is not my set lineup, I can throw different guys in. This is a team that could do wonders.
So the question to ask is, in order to get a spot in the national team, who do you replace? Like, which player is doing enough right now to knock down that door and take away a spot from someone else? For this upcoming window, there's going to be players who are naturally unavailable. Junior Hoylett's been injured for quite some time, and now there's been a number of different injuries that are going to affect who may be available for this upcoming window. So there will be some new players coming in. Multiple sources have indicated to me that 2 Canadian Premier League alumnus are going to be part of this Canadian team, with Dominic Zator. It was reported earlier today. I'm told that that's true, that Zator will be part of the setup, as well as a name of Victor Latourie, another player whose name has been floated around. Multiple sources have indicated to me that you can expect him to receive a Canada call-up as well. Now, obviously, things can change. That's our expectation as of right now in taping, which honestly is a badge of honor for the Canadian Premier League. The fact that these 2 players have moved on, are now playing elsewhere. The Canadian Premier League afforded them that opportunity, and now they've done enough to go out and achieve a call-up into this men's national team setup. Now, beyond that, I think that in terms of players coming in, it will be limited to players replacing others through injury, because I really think that this core group of the team in Qatar, they're still going to stick around for the upcoming windows. Even some of the veteran players, like, play through the summer, see if you can make a Nations League final, go out with your best effort. Then same thing at the Gold Cup. These are 2 competitions I think that Canada needs to prioritize, to not just go out and compete, but go out and win. Make a statement. It's one thing finishing atop a World Cup qualifying group. It's another thing winning a trophy. And I think that would do this program all kinds of good. Then after that, in the second half of the year, Adam, that's when I think you can maybe start taking some chances, bringing in some new names to the program. So these are exciting times. Strong core, some new players coming in off the fringe to look forward to seeing, and a good reward for some of these players that have worked hard within the Canadian soccer ecosystem. And
you have to think, too, the carrot for a lot of them, the World Cup. That is the biggest stage, but you don't want to go out on a whimper. You want to go where you're celebrated, the weather's nice, you're at home perhaps, and they're going to get those opportunities, we would imagine, throughout the course of the summer. And hey, maybe some hardware as well. Wouldn't that be nice? The path to the Gold Cup, it will begin with the draw. That is April the 14th, one day before the Canadian Premier League season begins. Of course, you can see that right here on OneSoccer. We'll put another bow on the Concacaf Champions League, the round of 16 for the Whitecaps, which was a success. Vanni Sartini, fists in the air to celebrate. He will join the show live after the break. We'll check in with the gaffer, who must be thrilled to see his side advance to the quarterfinal round of Champions League. It was a loss on the day by 3-2, but a big win on aggregate for the Vancouver Whitecaps, 7-3 over 3 hours of football. The full-time stats from San Pedro Sula, it was Real España needing goals. The offense reflects that: 23 shots to 14, 11 of those on target. That is 8 stops for Thomas Asal. 2/3 possession for España by the end of the match, and Vancouver without a single corner in the match. Let's head back to the Metropolitano Stadium and hear from Vanni Sartini now.
Yeah, I think the game was okay in the sense that was what we expected, with them attacking a lot, and we had to kind of resist and then counterattack. We did it perfectly, I think, till minute 65 when we scored the first goal. And then it became a little bit of chaos. I think players were very tired at the end. The heat and the fact that a lot of players that play 90 minutes, they never played 90 minutes before today. And the wind became a big factor in the second half. But of course, I'm a little, I don't want to say pissed, but, actually it's good that we considered those goals on the set plays when at the end it didn't count, because we need to work on it, because again, it's been a part of the game that we haven't been good from the beginning of the season, and we need to be better. But for the rest, I'm happy. The qualification was never in discussion. We were always in the game. And at the end, I told the guys, even if they were a little bit down, we did not lose 3-2 today. We won 7-3. So we need to be happy.
Michael.
Hey, Vanni, congratulations on going through, and a fun game really today. You know it wouldn't be me if I wasn't going to ask you about the defence and the marking. So you touched on it there, but 2 of the goals, free headers again in the box. There's another couple of free headers as well that produced good saves from Thomas Asal. How concerned are you about this? Because it doesn't seem to matter what players are in there. These free headers just keep happening.
Yeah, I am concerned, of course. And we need to be better. I need to evaluate better what happened today. So they had 2 big boys, very big boys. And it was hard today, but I think the last goal especially was, we should have done much better. The first goal was, I think Thomas has been a little bit kind of, I don't know the English word, to be honest. It was very hard for him because of the wind. The wind changed the trajectory of the ball, because actually the defense was okay. It was his ball to get it. And the second goal was a banger, to be honest. Yeah, he stopped the ball and then so that's, but I agree with you. We need to do much better in terms of positioning, in terms of being aggressive, and in terms of, there are some players that they don't get the fact that if you are zonal, it doesn't mean you're a stick. We need to attack the ball.
Oh, I love some of those sound bites from Vanni Sartini. Yeah, don't be a stick is one of it. There's a lot of sticks on this bracket. That is the path for the Vancouver Whitecaps towards the Concacaf Champions League final. Live right now on our YouTube channel, Orlando and Tigres. They are 0-0 through the first leg. 10:30 p.m. That is the match that I think Whitecaps fans will be more interested in, between LAFC and Alajuelense, to determine who will play the Caps in the quarterfinal round. It is the MLS side who leads by 3-0. And if Orlando City does not get that upset done against Tigres, there will be no Major League Soccer clubs on that side of the bracket. You know who else has 2 big boys? I do. These guys right beside me, Wilson and Wheeler. But we know the scoreline. It should be LAFC, just like it should have been Vancouver, who progressed from this game. The LFC MLS Cup champs, undefeated to start the season. Do you think it's a matchup that Vanni Sartini and his side will be ready for, and it rolls around April 4th to 13th?
They'll be relishing it, because in conversation with Vanni Sartini, he told us he believes that LAFC are the best team in this competition. And who are we to argue with them? I mean, they played 3 games thus far. They scored at least 3 goals in each and every one of them. A little bit of a different looking team than the MLS Cup champions from last year. But I think the case can be made that they are the best team in this competition.
And then I just wonder, Wheels, what is Vanni Sartini's game plan for that game specifically? Do you sit back? You see as well, the beginning of the season for Whitecaps, that doesn't really bode very well, them sitting back. They kind of they aren't good at defending crosses right now at this point. What's the squad you come with? Do you go on attack? Just many questions, because the LAFC squad is a very dangerous squad.
Well, and I think right now, if you're Sartini, what you really want to see is the goals continue, the momentum continue, because they had that bit of a lull after the 5 goals. They only get an own goal. That was their offense against Dallas, and they'll be up against it against LA Galaxy. That's not an easy road trip to go from Honduras to LA, still be away from home and try and figure it out. So it's all about building some momentum for the Whitecaps now as they try and turn this Champions League success into MLS success. All in all, Gareth, I think the one point to make, and as some people have asked about it, is the yellow cards, because there were quite a few of them accumulated, some warranted, some not. Reminder to those in this competition, 2 yellow cards in 2 separate matches does lead to a 1-match ban. Those are wiped after the semifinal round, so at least something to be mindful of in that next round. Good night, Jordan. Our first show together.
Thanks.
Good to high five me
High
on the
five
left hand.
with your other
No,
hand.
I can't do it
With
on
your
this
other
one,
hand.
brother. Can't do it on this one. Gareth Wheeler and Jordan Wilson welcoming me back as I would
Playing
expect nothing else from them on this day. And hey, on this day, a little bit cooler on this side of the world than down in Honduras, but the Whitecaps survived the heat. And the pups were out to enjoy it as well. I think that was Gareth Wheeler and Reese Bulldog, by the way. But hey, I digress.
wish.
Vanni Sartini celebrates as he should. The Whitecaps advance to the quarterfinals of Concacaf Champions League. For our fantastic OneSoccer crew, I've been Adam Jenkins saying so long for now.